This is E&P Reports from Editor and Publisher Magazine, the authoritative voice of news media since 1884, serving newspapers, broadcasts, digital, and all multimedia news publishing. And greetings once again, Mike Blinder, publisher at E&P Magazine. I must do housekeeping first. If you are listening to this program on whatever podcast channel you like, please follow us. Watching us on YouTube, there is a subscribe button below, a bell to the right. If you hit that, you'll get an update each and every time we post a new episode of this vodcast series, E&P Reports. I'm taking you now from my home in Nashville to where I grew up, outside of Philadelphia. I don't know if the Wingerts know this, but I am a Philly boy. Did you guys know that?
No.
Oh, I knew that. Yeah.
Haverford High School class of 75.
Yeah.
The best Phillies team ever back then. You had in first base, you had Mike Rose, and you had way out there Greg Luzinski in left field. Larry Boa wasn't the coach. He was shortstop back then. I mean, it was just Mike Schmidt. I could go on. And I know what a cheesesteak is, but did you guys know that the number one convenience store in Tampa Bay, which you just moved out of, is now Wawa? And no one knows what the heck Wawa is down there.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But the reason I'm talking about suburban Philly is we're now in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. We're talking to the Wingert family. Bridget Wingert, welcome to the program. You are the founding editor of the Bucks County Herald. We're honored to have you.
Well, thank you very much.
And
I'm happy to be here.
Joseph, do people call you Joe, or is it Joseph? Which do you prefer?
Most people call me Joe, unless they're angry with me.
Joe Wingert, Jr., I assume, publisher, and also the current, at this time, president of the Pennsylvania News Media Association. Am I correct, sir?
No, ex officio. No.
Ex officio, okay, but at least I bumped into you at the conference.
Right.
This is an exciting story we're going to explore in the next 30 minutes. The Bucks County Herald is a true example of a community coming together. Am I saying that? Because I watched this tremendous story that you put up on the internet. Those of you that are listening on a podcast channel, go to editorandpublisher.com/vodcasts and watch this 9-minute video. But you have proven that a community truly cherishes a local news publishing organization, because you are now a nonprofit, but more importantly, a foundation with a lot of community support. Is that it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary. So good.
But not as a nonprofit foundation. That's more recent, isn't it? Correct?
Yes. Nonprofit started in 2021.
Here we go. We're going to explore all that and more, and take a look under the hood, if I may say, of the operation of the Bucks County Herald on the backside of this message.
This episode of E&P Reports is sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide are asking the same question. How do we accelerate the growth of consumer revenue? Traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way, costing you money. IQ Audience Plus by Town News is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers you to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Ready to supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income? Visit townnews.com/EP today to learn more about IQ Audience Plus by Town News.
Okay, let's start with you, Bridget. You go way back. By no means am I dating you, because I know that I looked at Joe's LinkedIn profile. Joe, I'm not stalking you, but you and I are approximately the same age. I think you went to AU, I went to GW. Is that right, sir?
That's correct.
And yet, so I'm like 3 years older than you based on your graduation year. But Bridget, your mom, 1968, is that when you got into this industry?
Yes.
Yes. What was your passion? What did you study? What brought you to the world of journalism? I've got to know.
It was accidental.
Really?
I started school and left it, and then went back. And when I graduated in 1968, I had already had 4 children, and I wanted to work close to home. There was an ad in a local newspaper, and I applied for the job of assistant editor. And I could walk to work, and and I could be near my kids' schools, and that was it. It was a job that I knew I could do, and so I got it, and it was very nice.
Now, I understand that you moved on when there was a sale, correct? The newspaper was sold, you weren't happy with it, and that's when you decided to start your own publication. Give me the background of how you grew to be an owner of the Bucks County Herald before it went into the charitable foundation. How did that all take place?
Well, I started at I moved to several newspapers,
Right.
and they're all community papers. And yes, the one I was with was sold to a very large company, and like many in the Philadelphia area, it was run out of business. And so I thought my newspaper still was in business, but I thought there was a need for a newspaper in the rural part of Bucks County. And my husband joined me, and we started this newspaper.
Well, wait a second. I read the story. I hope you don't.
Okay.
I'm not stalking you. You interviewed a potential publisher for the paper, and your husband was overheard the conversation and said, "He ain't the guy. I'll take the job." Is that what? So,
yes.
Your husband you worked for your husband worked for you. Either way, you were both in this partnership together, and he had no publishing background. He just took it over.
No, he had just listened to me for a long time, and so, and so he knew a good bit. He worked for IBM. He was a computer guy. He was an engineer, and he was very bright. And he pulled together the basics for this business, and he was very helpful.
And you've gone on for decades with a very hyper-local, well-respected brand, the Bucks County Herald.
Yeah.
And again, I was checking all this out. And then, Joe, did you study journalism at AU? Was this your baby? Did you have ink in your veins when you went to college, or were you going to go off and be a fireman or something?
No,
what was your plan?
Not even close. I went to AU to study. I was interested in joining the Foreign Service, and I did get as far as the Peace Corps, but that was about the end of my career in the Foreign Service. But before this, I was in real estate development and construction.
Okay.
Yeah.
What brought you over to the Bucks County Herald? What year did you come in and work with Mom?
2011, and it was actually conversations with my father about what to do next. My parents grew the paper to, they started with a circulation of about 3,500 in 2002, and by the time I was considering joining them, it was around 22 to 25,000. And my father was trying to figure out what to do next, because they created something that basically had a life of its own. And I agreed to give it a try, and I started in sales, and I did it for a year. And after that first year, I was hooked.
So nice, because I come from the business side as well, the sales side. So it's something good. I mean, I remember in my radio days, I don't know what, it's my show, I can say whatever I want, but in my radio days, when I was a disc jockey, that was the content side. And I just wasn't making enough money. My boss told me if I wanted to run a radio station, I had to know the street. And he was right. I got into sales, and that helped me excel at management of the media company for many years to come. Do you find that background was essential? I mean, just understanding the relationships with advertisers and having that in your background, sir?
Completely. I like to say our salespeople are basically ambassadors for our brand. And for me, in my current role, I really got a good sense of what is going on with the community. I had my finger on the pulse of the community. We're very fortunate to live in an area that is completely engaged through volunteerism, nonprofits, business associations. It's pretty tight, and being able to circulate among these different groups and different people, you could really get a good sense of what's important to them in the area.
That's excellent. So let me continue the journey now. So now, just like me, I picked up E&P with my wife. September 2019. No one saw the pandemic coming. There you guys are. The business is flourishing, and here comes the pandemic. You are a free weekly, correct? Or you were free, meaning that it was being passed around and racked and put everywhere in the community for people to grab and get. And suddenly your community shuts down. And correct me if I'm wrong, I was watching the video, 70% of your advertising disappeared virtually overnight. Is that correct, Joe?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
it was a scary moment.
Did you and Mom sat and chatted, and did you talk about shutting down? Did you just say it ain't worth it anymore? Was it ever one moment where you're having that single malt scotch and you're going, I can't do this? I mean, what happened?
Well, I don't know about my mother, but for me, it was no question. We were staying open. It was just, the question was, what does it look like?
So how did let me swing it back then to Mom.
Yeah.
Why nonprofit? Who brought the idea to you? Did it come to you in your brain to start a foundation, or did someone approach you? Did you have a friend? How did the idea of turning this into a nonprofit entity, run by a local foundation, which you're on the board, how did that come about, Bridget?
Well, we thought about that many times because we had our ups and downs, and there were some pretty lean years. And so it was in the back of our minds, and we had the Philadelphia Inquirer nearby, and we knew that was operated by a nonprofit. So things were happening all over the industry that it seemed like a good idea.
And you started the Bucks County Herald Foundation. Your executive director was pretty wired into the nonprofit world, correct? You have someone who knew the ins and outs of making that business model work, Gretchen?
Yes, that's Joe's wife, Ann Meredith, and
did not know.
She is our executive director.
Yeah.
So,
all right, so it's all in the family. So your wife was working in other nonprofit world, is that correct, Joe? At the time?
Well, no, at the time she was actually handling our special sections and the magazine. But she did. I recruited her from a nonprofit organization when I decided to start a magazine. So she seemed like the right person to do the job, and probably was the best decision I ever made. So besides marrying her, but yeah, of course.
My wife and I are business partners. It's all in the family here as well.
Yeah.
So now we're building a non-profit foundation. This is the pure, none of those other wacky ways people try to run newsrooms, which means you needed a board of directors, correct? What is the complexion of your board locally? How did they come to you? Did you solicit them? Give me an idea of the types of personalities. There are places in the local ecosystem that sit on your board, if I may. Either one, Joe or Gretchen.
You want to answer that, Mom? Bridget?
Well, I'll answer part of it. It's a diverse group, and we have the president of a college, the local community college. We have a man who has been in the medical field, and he's invented a few things, and he has been very generous to the whole community. We have a lawyer. We have a filmmaker.
A filmmaker. Wow.
Yes, and she's the one who made that wonderful film. Mm-hmm. Directed that for us. And Joe, you wanted to go from here?
Sure. So that's Jennifer Lynn. She was also a journalist with the Inquirer for many years. Our first board member was, he's the executive editor of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, but he had connections here, and I knew him from my time on the board at P&A. And we have another one who is also a journalist. So I think we covered everybody.
K-Rock.
Yeah, K-Rock. Yeah.
Okay. So now, COVID's hit. You're a nonprofit charitable foundation. You're reporting together to a board, and you made a plea to the community. Am I right? It's almost like you wrote this letter that you published in the paper that kind of said, "Help us stay alive." Who crafted that message? How did that all come about, Bridget?
I don't remember crafting it myself. I really don't. But it was either Joe or Ann or the three of us. And we right away, we should have closed right away. beginning of the pandemic. And we right away asked for people to donate, and they did. And before we were a nonprofit, people sent things in, and a lot of people really wanted to have a newspaper. So,
Joe, this was hard, wasn't it? Because you were like, what if no one sent any money, right? I mean, you must have been like, what was it like, Joe, to put it in there, cross your fingers, and hope that people would take you seriously?
Well, people accuse me of being overly optimistic, and the thought of closing never crossed my mind. And as I said earlier, it was just a question of, what we look like after doing this. I had a lot of hope that we would get donations. And quite honestly, the first issue that we put the plea out to our readers, we did sit back and almost hold our breath. But that following Monday, we publish every Thursday. Following Monday, envelopes started coming in, and it was piles of them coming in. I mean, we were overwhelmed with the support. Sort of defined us as a community resource and a community treasure.
Did someone actually hand you a dollar bill with one of you or something?
Yes.
What is that?
Was just so remarkable. Lady came to the door, and it was, we're in the depths of the pandemic, and she walked up to the door and knocked on it with her mask, and she had gloves on and everything, and she handed me a dollar bill and said, I only have this. Is it enough? Of course I did. Yes.
All right. So the community supports you. When you watch this video, you have so many community leaders talking about your commitment to the community and how strong your brand. You see, I always look at media companies not as print or digital or email or podcast or surgical implants at birth. The people, I don't care what the media is. I look at the brand and the success of the brand and how the brand is perceived in the community. Many people have been on this forum, this program, talking about how this industry does a poor job in positioning itself to its community. In other words, we market other people's products all the time, but we don't market ourselves well. I mean, I look back, maybe, Joe, you must remember this, when the NAA wanted to promote our classifieds, and they had this certified classified icon of a boy on the street going extra, extra. And I'm thinking, when was the last time someone saw? I mean, we're just not good at building these campaigns. What is your secret sauce? I mean, what advice would you? Because people, you don't have to be. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joseph. You were president of the PNA. You've been covering all of these. You know that it could be a membership model, right? It doesn't have to be a nonprofit. What is your messaging? How do you keep your brand so alive in the community, or is it just darn good journalism, Joseph?
Well, I mean, a basic advertising rule, which is consistency and repetition. So we are advertising it weekly, and that there's a digital presence also. And everything we do is about, conveying that message, support local journalism, your support matters. We are starting to make the argument for the fact that there are so many new community news organizations that are closing now, and the importance of maintaining local news and how healthy communities are by having these organizations healthy and intact. So it's a constant drumbeat of messaging that I believe is contributing to our success in getting that kind of support.
Bridget, how active are you in the community? You must be looking to slow down a little bit. Are you actively still on board, still out there supporting local organizations?
Yes, but we just have appointed a new editor. So
oh, that's right.
Yeah, so I will be active with the foundation, and I'm still active in local organizations. And that was one of the keys when we started the paper. We went to everything. And this is a place that has many community events. We have historical societies. We have fire companies. We have schools. We have you just name it, there's something always going on here. And we took a lot of photographs, and we print a lot of photographs, and people like to see their pictures. And so it's an entertaining paper, but it also has information. And the information is about the stuff that's important to people, like the road closures and the development that's going to come up, and taxes, of course, and school boards. And school boards are really important around here. So.
And faces. I mean, when I took over E&P, we have expanded. Every story has a face, and people in the news, the back section now, I've got it up to 5-6 pages. Faces, face. It was called Facebook, wasn't it? I remember that. So, no, I mean, people forget that when your shooters are out there, get those faces, get those people. Everybody wants to be in the paper. It's fascinating. Okay, so let's close this out with your current business model. What is your business model now on the sales side? You're still selling advertising, am I correct? Joe, I mean, yes. Are you just as aggressive as you would have been as a nonprofit? I mean, as a for-profit entity? What is it?
Yes. So the Herald itself operates as it always has. But the ownership structure is different. So right. The family gave its shares to the foundation, started the foundation, gave its shares to the foundation. The foundation is now the owner. The Herald is a subsidiary of the foundation, so we can continue to operate as we always have. And we do have a very strong sales team, and we've been selling the way we always have. There's been virtually no change to the way the paper itself runs. The nonprofit, however, provides support for the journalists. So we raise money to pay for the people who cover the school board meetings, the township meetings, the elections, and we've been able to expand our coverage because of that support. So we make that distinction between the two.
When someone, and I'm not an accountant, but if someone buys advertising within any of your platforms, is that a tax deductible contribution, or is that not, Joe?
It's not the way we're set up.
Okay. But if someone contributes, then it's a tax deductible donation.
That's correct. Yes.
Interesting. And so it's the best of both worlds. And do you maintain, see, this is, you were at the conference in Harrisburg that I hosted a panel with Patel from, I don't know if you were there.
I was there. Yeah.
The Baltimore Banner did a little, I don't know if you were there, Bridget. Did you go to Harrisburg for the conference?
No, not this year. No.
All right. So I had Patel, the CEO of the Baltimore Banner, nonprofit entity, and we did this TED talk, and Joe was there, and it was fascinating. He said, I broke the mold of nonprofit. I said, what? He goes, I fired someone. And then someone said, you can't fire people in nonprofit world. He goes, yes, you can. I'm trying to do a sustainable business model. So he has that aggressive advertising model going into a nonprofit world. There's nothing wrong with that, is there, Joe? In being aggressive, having your salespeople making sales calls, talking up the marketing, the audience, correct?
Yeah, no. I mean, when you think about it, you've got to create a sustainable model, and it's a business model, and that's the key. No matter whether it's a for-profit or a nonprofit, it's still a business, and you have to operate it. And to survive, you need people to perform and do their jobs the way they need to be done to ensure the survival of the business.
Okay, let me swing back then to Bridget. What's the culture like there? If I walk into everybody talks about I have to retain my employees, I have to keep them. If I walk into your building today, what kind of culture would I feel in the building right now? I traveled to 18 state associations in 2022. I've trained thousands and thousands of salespeople in my career. I still consult a few family media companies. And when I walk in and I see, everybody looking like the world's ending, they're just, this is it. I mean, I don't know how I'm surviving anymore. They got all that negative energy flowing through them because they just read another article about the death of the industry, which is usually written by editors who are mad. Yeah. And this whole thing, we're always talking our own doom and gloom. What is the culture in the building, Joe? If I walk in there today, what am I going to feel? What energy is going to flow?
It's good. We have very little turnover, particularly in the sales team, which is, I know it's not that common, but the two newbies have been here since just before the pandemic, and they stayed through it. And if you think about this, Mike, they're all on straight commission, all of our salespeople.
Really?
So, yeah, but it goes beyond that too. We have it's very interesting, but we have writers, salespeople, designers who have come from these larger news organizations. And when they walk in the door, a couple of things happen. They walk in the door and they just say, I can't believe you're still doing what I used to do and I love so much. And then the other thing is, and you hear this from people who go out into the public or the salespeople, they're shocked when they walk into their first customer, their first meeting with somebody from the community, and invariably somebody says, I love the Herald. And they're just like, they say, well, when I was with thus and such or so-and-so newspaper, they're always happy to see me. So we're doing something right. And I'd say that kind of that feedback we get from the community really kind of feeds our own culture in the office. People are very committed and optimistic about what we do.
Off the record, well, I can't say that because we're still recording. Are you going to buy? Are you going to buy? Are you going to, with the foundation, pick up other titles? Do you think? I mean, there's a lot of communities around there. Can we be the first to report on that here at ENP, or are you not talking?
Oh, well, I'll speak to this. The one of our board members one day said, "Do you think we can replicate this model?"
There you go.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a question of whether we buy, but a question of replicating it somewhere else. So Montgomery County is a good example.
Right.
And that's an area that had at one time 16, 17 weeklies, and they ended up falling under one organization. And
I know the organization well. Go ahead.
Right. They're barely a shadow of what they used to be.
Now, JR.
So there's a need there. And, I think from our perspective, as we sort of settle in to doing what we do and we get better at it, and we have, kind of like a sustainable operation in place, stable and sustainable, then, then we'll look at, replicating it in other markets if there's a need and people want us there.
Well, I'm going to do a little selling for you now to our audience, because we have to close this out now. I now live in suburban Nashville. I just moved here because my daughter's here and we have family here, but I'm a suburban Philly boy. As this company, this entity, this foundation grows, let me tell you, cheesesteaks and hoagies are worth it. You want to, and tasty cakes. I could go on and on about the benefits.
Yes.
About
and
Philadelphia.
Soft pretzels.
And soft pretzels. And it's just a wonderful place to be. So I want to thank you all. Most importantly, I'd like to thank the folks at SCS who turned us on to your operation as well. They're one of our bigger advertisers. We got an email, saying, "Hey, you just got to talk to these guys with such energy." So Bridget, founding editor, Bucks County Herald, Joe Wingert, Jr., publisher, and I want to thank you both. We're going to keep an eye on you. Keep us informed of what you guys are up to. And more importantly, keep up the good fight, because I believe your basic blocking and tackling and just doing good journalism and just serving the community is paying off. So thanks so much for sharing your story.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right.